Do you want to make your own podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And this is the platform that I use because it makes it so simple to record and distribute your podcast all in one place using your cell phone. What you need to do is download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hello, my name is Catherine Moore, social worker, mom, coffee lover, and founder of Social Workers Rise, where we inspire social workers to connect, expand their knowledge, and change more lives than they ever thought possible. I'm so excited you found my podcast. We will talk everything social work on every level from micro to macro. We will hear the stories of social workers who are doing big things, learn new skills, and most importantly, give you actionable steps to make a difference today. Let's go. Hey guys, thank you for joining me on another episode of Social Workers Rise. Before we get into the episode with Damon Holzum talking about sex therapy, I just wanted to take a moment to pause and just talk about how hard it is right now. It's hard to be a social worker, you guys. It's hard normally, and normally our industry struggles with overwhelm and burnout, but especially right now. So it's hard for us veteran social workers who have been doing this for a long time, and especially hard for the newer social workers too. So if you are just getting your degree, if you're just getting started, if you're new to the field, and you're feeling like, what is going on? I'm not making the kind of impact that I thought I was going to have. Am I even meant to be a social worker? I want you to know that that's normal. Unfortunately, it's normal. And a lot of us had felt that way. And I wanted to do something for you guys specifically who might be feeling this way and who might need a little bit more guidance about, what does burnout look like in real life? How do I know if my client is feeling burnt out? Like, how do I even build that rapport quickly? Because a lot of times we don't even have time to build that rapport. So we need to know what it looks like in real life. And okay, great. Like, we're burnt out. I'm burnt out. What do we do about it? What's next? How can we help? What are some tools that I can use? And that's exactly what I'm going to be giving you on our virtual event on May 20th. That's a Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. I'm teaming up with my colleague and yogi specialist. She's also a social worker and breast cancer survivor. So she is just amazing. And her and I are going to be talking about, one, how do you build rapport quickly with people? Two, once you have that rapport, what does burnout look like? A lot of times it's with caregivers or with ourselves even. What does it look like in ourselves? So we're going to be talking about that. And also, once we realized someone may be burnt out and need extra help, what do we do? How do we help them to the best of our ability and give you guys some real tools so that you can be better equipped to help them and help yourselves? So I hope you will join me on May 20th from 9 to 12. And the event tickets, you can find them on Eventbrite. It's going to be the event's called Coping Through Crisis, which is exactly what we're all trying to do. copingthroughcrisis.eventbrite.com. I hope to see you there. Now, let's jump into this episode.
Hi.
Hi, Damon. Thank you so much for joining me on Social Workers Rise. I'm so excited to talk to you and excited to get a little bit uncomfortable.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm glad that you did. I love doing stuff like this.
Awesome. So a little bit of background. Damon and I met in grad school when we were getting our masters back in I don't know. I think we met maybe the first year, 2013,
2012. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine? 2012 and we graduated in 2015. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
It's only been
Good
5
time.
years and it seems like it's been 10 or 12.
It feels like forever. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we have been staying connected on social media and I love your posts and everything that you do. So, but first I want to know something that I've never asked you.
Yeah.
How did you get into social work? How did you know you wanted to be a social worker?
That's an interesting one. So it's interesting for me because it's kind of a social work, or the term social worker is kind of a means to an end for me. I more often identify as a clinical therapist or a therapist over the social worker moniker, because there's a distinct difference. I like doing the mental health, the one-on-one. I like doing all of that, less so the social services linkages, things like that. So to back it up, I was in corporate America for many, many years working in the wireless industry. And I always was really comfortable talking about sex and relationships and things like that. And being a gay man, there was so much stigma and shame and people having challenges with expression, which led to unsafe sex, which led to HIV and all of this stuff. And I never really had those challenges, not to the extreme most people did. So I wanted to help that environment. I wanted to help that demographic. And so I kind of researched how to go about doing that. And an LCSW license as an older adult, transitioning careers from a corporate America drone over to this world was like the best fit. I didn't want to be a psychiatrist, way too much schooling, and I hate math. And I didn't want to go MFT route, because the more I researched it, the more I found out that it can be a real struggle getting hours. And there were just more doors open with an MSW, a Master's in Social Work, or an LCSW. I wasn't really that familiar with a PsyD, and they're really expensive, and that's more kind of testing and things like that. So it just really fit the bill for me. So I kind of reverse engineered I want to do this in my life. What degree, what letters after my name will get me there the quickest, most efficient, with the most potential? And that's how I came up with being an LCSW.
That is fascinating. I don't know if anyone else, I've never heard anyone else's story like that. It's not often that we meet people from corporate America who are like, I want to help people.
Yeah, because it's as I was doing, I taught sex education classes and stuff. I just kind of fell into it. I was always been very open and honest about sex and sexuality. So, I really kind of focus on destigmatizing that. So people would ask me to present and teach classes and things like that. And I loved doing it. So I would go do that. And then I would go to this, corporate America, boring, weird, hierarchical job. And it paid the bills. I'm not going to complain. I liked doing it. I was good at it, but it just wasn't what I really wanted. It's not what I want to do for the rest of my life, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So what do you do now for work? I know you kind of do a lot of different things. So what are you doing for your day job and then like on the side?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do several different things. I do my regular 9 to 5 job. I work at a community health clinic where I do outreach and engagement. I do mental health to an entire range of people and families. Everything from, I mean, like little kids, we're talking like infants, all the way up to older adults, grandparents, stuff like that. Everything from individuals that have, you know, oppositional defiant, ADHD, all the way through to schizophrenia and personality disorders. So that is my 9 to 5 job, which I really love. There's a lot of field work, variety. It's a really wonderful community agency. It was founded and is operated primarily by African American individuals. So I am literally the only white male therapist there. So it's mostly black and brown, and that's mostly the people that we also service. And I love it. It fits me really well. It's very natural and organic and fun. It's like a family.
Oh, that's nice. I like
Yeah.
that.
And then on the flip side, I I also do private practice at home, and I see 1 or 2 clients, maybe more, depending on how busy I get during the week or weekends, and that's where I kind of specialize in, the LGBT community and working on like relationships. I do a lot of couples therapy, a lot of focusing on communication, sex, sexuality, how to improve life as a couple, and a whole variety of things.
That's amazing. So would you identify yourself as a sex therapist?
I do, absolutely. Yeah. I identify myself as a sex positive therapist,
Okay.
somebody who really works with either individuals or even other professionals to help them understand and handle talking about sex and sexuality with their clients, or people working at being better understood of what their needs and wants are for sex and sexuality.
So what do people usually come to you about? Like, what is their common problem that they talk to you about or that they need help with?
That's a good question. So I'm pretty active on social media, and I also run a dance and play party, which is a party for gay men that is sex positive. So it actually has like physical engagement, dancing, and stuff like that. So when people see that, people kind of have this idea of who I am as a person, which is someone who's kind of pushing the boundaries of sex and sexuality. So a lot of people come to me when they are kind of aware of their own sex and sexuality, their own challenges or struggles within their relationship, and they want to fine tune it and communicate. Like, people will go to somebody, say that you're in a relationship and you want to open it up. You want to invite someone in to have sex with you and your partner. I'm someone who can help you navigate that, but I find that the people who really come to me are the ones who have already done that and understand it, but we're really getting into the weeds, the nuances, the culture and the terminology and the real fine tuning of how to navigate that stuff. I'm the professional for the professionals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I had no
it's hard
idea.
to explain. So, I really try and engage and help people understand what they want. It's You might have people that are in the leather community, which have a dom, a sub, a sir, a master, all those things. So they're familiar with this, or the BDSM community. So they're into all these things and they know what they're doing, but now they need to learn how to fine tune it with their partner.
What is BDSM?
Bondage, domination, and sadomasochism. So it's just a general term for people who engage in kind of alternative sexual practices, more of, how would I describe it in a layman's terms? Somebody who would be more akin to engage with a person in a dominant or a submissive role. There's labels, there are ways that people act and proceed that are very particular to their own like desires, and kind of, I would say, just generally non-traditional.
Okay. Okay. All of this, I'll be honest, all of this makes me extremely uncomfortable, like talking about it. Which
I
is,
know, but that's what
I
you
know it's
do.
part of
You
my,
talk about it, and then you get more
I
comfortable.
know, I know it's part of our culture or my culture.
It is. No, it's not just you. It's the American culture. Americanized culture is very, very sex negative. It's very shaming, very stigma based. We live in a very, very puritanical society. We don't talk about sex or sexuality, and then we just expect people to know what to do. And if there's any variation from this white, cisgender, heterosexual engagement, people think you're bad or broken or something else, and that's not true at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely thank you for validating my feelings.
Yeah, it's true. You're good. I mean, as I said, I see people all the time, professionals and, civilians, that just really don't know how to talk or engage with sex and sexuality, and it does a real disservice to the community, because your client, if they don't feel comfortable sharing with you, you're not getting the full story, and you're not really helping or protecting them from something that could be negative.
Yeah, that's true. And I do notice that that's so I work with right now I'm in palliative care, and it's a lot I do see a lot of people in middle age, like in their 40s, 50s, who are very, very sick, and who
Yeah.
now are unable to be sexually active. And I like
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't really know or feel comfortable. I don't know how to address it or talk about it, or like I provide empathy, but I feel like that's just so shallow. Do you have any tips for me?
Well, honestly, empathy is not a bad place to start, for sure. A lot of people just want to feel heard in those scenarios. I can't count how many times I worked with a child or a family, and the parents were so not physically engaged or emotionally engaged, because they took so much time taking care of their child, that their relationship was greatly suffering. So, what would end up happening is they would become stressed with the child, and then they become stressed with each other, and they never really engaged or communicated their wants and their needs. So it was this just big ball of anger and anxiety. So just me being there, even though I would do, my focus and my client was primarily the child, but then I would end up talking to the parents about, when was the last time you guys were intimate?
Mm.
When's the last time you guys decided to positively engage with each other and prioritize each other? And a
So,
lot of times they'd just be like, months or a year or something like that. And empowering them to really reconnect is some of the best work that I can do.
so that's really an interesting perspective on helping the child, because and it's something that we did not learn in grad school. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, for sure.
So like how does having sex, like, or not having sex, impact a parent's ability to be there for the child and be present and be happy in their relationship?
That's a good question. And it's also, I mean, it's going to be different for everyone, obviously. What I really feel is humans crave connection, they crave intimacy, they crave touch, they crave being validated and loved. So if you're not getting that, and the only thing you're focused on is the problems in your life, either poor communication or feeling unfulfilled or the child acting up, you're doing a huge disservice to your relationship. Like, I can't count how many times I see relationships that are really at their breaking point right at the end, or people have cheated on each other and they want to throw the whole relationship away based on this infidelity. Well, do they want to throw it away, all that work, all that effort, all that time? Or could they just talk and find out what needs were not being met? If they can regroup, they can salvage a lot of it if they let go of that shame and stigma and open themselves up to growing or learning or changing the way they think about intimacy.
Interesting. So is that a lot of like what you talk about in therapy, or like how you work through that with them? Like what kind of interventions are
Yeah,
you
for
using?
sure. Interventions I use are a lot. It's so funny you say that. There's so many things that I work with. It's very free form. I do a lot of narrative therapy. I listen and hear what people are saying, and then I challenge them on the stories that they create. So I can't count how many times someone goes, he or she is doing
Mm-hmm.
this. And I say, are they doing this, or are you creating a story? What proof do you have that that's actually happening? And a lot of times when they're challenged on that, they'll realize that they're so mired in their unhappiness with their partner that they're only seeing the negative. So when I challenge them and say, is that your story you've created, or is that something that you've honestly experienced? You know for a fact this is true. They go, oh, wait. And then opening the conversation. A lot of times I'm simply the mediator for a conversation that's just long overdue. I can't count how many times I've sat in front of someone, had them verbalize their thoughts and feelings about their partner, turned to their partner and said, is this the first time you've heard this? And the partner would say yes.
Mm.
They had no idea. Think of all the drama that could have been spared if they, number one person created a space that was safe for the person to share, and the other person then decided to share with them their wants and needs. It's huge. It's a big step because it opens each person up to a lot of vulnerability, rejection, you know, lots of challenges.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful. I know I have a client right now that I struggle with because so they're elderly, and he is his dementia is progressing, and he has started masturbating, and
Yeah.
in front of his wife, and his wife gets like, she is extremely upset, and she says it makes
Yeah.
her sick to her stomach to see him
Yeah.
doing this. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. I don't know like how to, if
And
we're not going to fix
that's,
it. It's her that needs
yeah.
to like accept that.
Well,
I don't
yes and
know.
no. It's like I would never force her. I would never invalidate her thoughts and
Right.
feelings about it. Obviously, she has a lot to unpack. And there's probably, she's going off of, I mean, how long have they been married? They've been married for,
Mm-hmm.
decades. And now she's seeing this. In her mind, they're maybe past that. Sex is not a priority to her. She doesn't think about it, and now she sees him doing this, and it's really upsetting, and it's probably also triggering her into a loss of who he was and some of his personality. That change, it's a real blatant manifestation of his dementia. So it makes sense that she's upset about it. It's, how to navigate that, find a safe space for him to do it. Think of it as a child. Can you redirect him to not do it in front of me? Can you do it somewhere else? Not shame him for it, because obviously he has an impulse control, but also validate her concerns. You know, and a lot of times we have older couples are a different era, and depending on who they are, where they're from, maybe sex was never a big deal to them to begin with, or something that was never really talked about or discussed, and now it's quite literally thrust in her face.
Right.
So she's like, it's like, I liken it, when I describe like polyamory or open relationships to some people, I liken it to, you've never ridden a bicycle, but I'm asking you to get on a motorcycle. There's so many layers to unpack and get through that we're kind of expecting her to jump into the deep end of the pool, coupled with the dementia factor and taking care of her husband and everything else. It's a really tough position for everyone to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is.
I would really validate and support her and just be like, I understand. Holy cow, I can't believe
Yeah.
he's doing that. But explain the real clinical side of it. Here's why this happens due to his dementia, things like that. And then work with her and find a way to navigate it without shaming her. Of course, it upsets her, makes her sick. But does it make her sick because she's losing him? Does it make her sick because she doesn't like the idea of sex in general or that overt sexual expression? It would be a lot of different things to work
Yeah.
with her on.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And to work with him on, even though he has dementia, not letting him off the hook, hey, Mr. Bob, thank you for doing that. How about we try and do
Right.
it over here? How about we do it in the safe space? How about we do it in the bathroom? Some place like you would teach a child not to expose themselves, you would do the same with him.
Yes. So what kind of issues come up with children? Because I'm not really in that realm. Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Ooh. I've been pretty fortunate, I guess I might phrase it, that I haven't had a lot of really challenging sexual issues with younger children. My biggest challenges that I run into is preteens and teens really exploring their sexuality and making sure they do it in a safe manner and a supportive manner, like validating them, especially if they come from a very reserved household where it's not talked about. Um, Also breaking the cycle of teenage pregnancy. Like a grandmother got pregnant when she was a teen, the mother got pregnant when she was teen, and now the teenager daughter is experimenting or has a boyfriend, and really trying to empower them to not stigmatize sex, but also educate that, when or what would be the best time for you to be pregnant, if at all. And also checking my countertransference on that one too, being like, you know, why do you want children? Let's back it up from
Yeah.
there. So, um, a big challenge I run into is making sure that people are safe, and also educating if there's a large age difference, and ensuring that people are really, really respecting that age difference and that everything is legal. As you know, being a mandated reporter, we have to be really cautious with that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And you mentioned when we talked offline about like sexual trauma in teens. Can you
Yeah.
like how would you like what are some
Oh,
red flags that come up for you, and how do you address that?
that's a huge one. Um, I mean, the Me Too movement is very real and very valid. And there are so many individuals, boys and girls alike, that experience sexual trauma in their youth and in their teens. Just things that go too far and they didn't want it to continue, but they did. Um, there's a lot of unpacking of guilt and shame. And I work with a lot of female clients that may have had sexual trauma in their teens, and making sure that I present as a safe space as a male person, because a lot of them don't want to work with a male therapist. They've got a lot of trauma and triggers around that, understandably so. So I really try to help them work through that, but also from a very sex positive lens. Like, what happened to you was bad. I support you. Sex itself is not bad, because they have a lifetime of sexual experiences ahead of them. And I personally want them to experience the best of it. I don't want them to always think that every time they approach a sexual encounter, that it's going to be a negative experience. That's really
Right.
sad to
Yeah, because
me.
I would imagine that would impact their dating life, their ability to find,
For sure.
someone to marry, and
Yeah, to have
yeah.
children, all sorts of different things, exploring their sexuality, whatever it may be. I really, really focus on creating a very safe and empowering space. And I'm a little unorthodox when it comes to therapists in general. I engage in a mild amount of self sharing, which a lot of therapists don't and are really scared to do so. I never do it with the idea of making it about me. But if I have an anecdote or an example that normalizes their experience or empowers them, I'm going to share it.
That makes sense. I mean, I use that too, and it does take some practice, and you have to be very
It does.
um, purposeful in the examples that you share, and you
Yeah.
have to be able to redirect it back to them. But I found, yeah, like when I do that, it's very powerful and it builds rapport. And yeah, and
For
it just
sure.
it normalizes what they're feeling, and like, oh, like even the therapist, even the social worker feels like this sometimes, or has gone through this. Yeah.
Yeah. And that building rapport, you're not going to have someone open up to you about their sex life unless they really trust
Mm-hmm.
and respect you. So recognizing that and really respecting that and creating that safe space for them to share is absolutely paramount to getting any movement in therapy, is my personal
Right.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
You can be the best therapist in the world, but if your client doesn't trust you or want to really share with you, it doesn't matter. You can't get anything
that's
going.
true. Yeah, that's true. Wow, and that's so powerful. Yeah, because it's not a topic that we talk about, or that's even encouraged or asked about. It's glossed over, most of the time. And I admit
Yeah.
I I do that too. Um it's yeah, and it's definitely an area that we can all work on.
I and I think we all have our blind spots. Like, for me, I think I struggle a little bit with the idea when I'm doing assessments and asking those really in-depth questions to a virtual stranger, like
Mhm.
suicidality or self-harm is something that I've had to really work through and be okay with delving into. Whereas I can talk about your sex life all day long and we'll ask you anything, but when it comes to how do you feel, do you want to hurt yourself, I'm like, ooh, this is a tough one.
That's so funny. Yeah.
And other people are like, suicide, let's talk about it, and I'm like, I don't wanna.
It's true. We all have our strengths.
Yeah, it's true.
That's funny. Um awesome. So, I guess oh, I had another question. So, this one comes up
Yeah.
a lot. How can we best support someone who has like wants to come out to their family, or has recently come out and maybe they didn't have a positive experience? Like, what can we do as therapists or social workers to support that person? What do they need?
Yeah, that's wonderful to ask. Honestly, as a gay man, as an LGBTQ affirmative person, the number one thing that anyone can do is just love and validation. Like, make sure that that individual knows that they are loved and respected, and that they will, if they haven't already, find a chosen family, that they have the love and support of an entire community. And there are so many resources, with PFLAG, with parents, to help them understand. Really also unpacking whatever the family has put into them is big, but also doing it in a super respectful way, so you're not hurting their relationship with their family. It can be a real delicate balance to support a child coming out without disparaging a family that may be negative about it.
Yeah.
Does
I
that
can
make
see that'd be
sense?
really difficult.
Um, yeah, you don't want to stigmatize mom or dad. And what I have found, honestly, just so much, here's what I like to say. Think of it this way. If you're a parent and you have a child, the number one goal of most parents is to make sure that their child is safe and happy. With our world, the United States in particular, and our puritanical society and right-wing nut jobs and all that good stuff, a lot of individuals are inundated with negative ideas on the LGBT community or homosexuality and things like that. So going to the root of the challenge would be literally educating the parents on how to support and understand their family, or how to understand their child. If they think that their child comes out as gay and is going to be a HIV positive prostitute drag queen, well, we need to destigmatize that and work that and understand what their fears are and where that's coming from. It really boils down to education. So I work in South Central. I work with primarily Black and brown families. Most Black and brown families identify as a strong religious base, and a lot of times Catholic, which doesn't believe in birth control, which doesn't believe in homosexuality, really finds their strength in the church. With respecting the church, providing education and understanding that for them, that's their only lens, is this negativity. So there's this big gap, this big blind spot that they never even considered, and now they're being asked to catch up. So you may have had a child that spent 16 years figuring out who they are and dreading coming out, and then they dump it on their parents, and their parents have about 5 minutes to convey support and love. Not every parent gets that right. So providing support and empathy for the parents, and I understand your concern, I understand why you're upset, I understand, and then asking them, what are your fears, what can we do to make it more comfortable for you, and then providing that safe space to the child. What are your fears, what can I do to create a safe space for you? And then providing resources, support groups, all of that stuff. Basically, overall, normalizing the experience and making sure that people don't view it as just an automatic negative. That's what I always recommend. It's a multi-layered approach.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm just over here processing all of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you have a daughter, right?
She'll be 3.
How old is she?
Thank
She
you.
is adorable. I see her on Instagram, she's just the cutest thing ever. Now, would you imagine her growing up and saying, Mom, I'm gay?
No, but I've thought about this, like being a social worker, like I've thought about it.
Yeah.
And
but your organic, natural expectation, you have an idea. Most parents, because it's simple majority, it's no fault of anyone, you just expect your child's going to grow up and be heterosexual and get married and have a kid and live their lives. So when Exactly. I don't care who, but she was, yeah. So, you having to process that, kind of put yourself in the parent's shoes,
Mm-hmm.
that could be quite the shock. So, just educating parents and being like, I understand this is like, holy cow, what's going on? And then unpacking that with them and creating a safe
Do
space for
you
them as well.
find that the parents that you work with, even if they react like um, in a way that might have hurt their rapport with their kid or hurt their feelings, even though they might initially react like that, because I don't want to say it's like in a bad way, but it's just it is what it
Mm-hmm.
is. If they react in a way that they
Yeah.
don't they like regret later on, do you find that a lot of times they want to support their children, or are they conflicted, are they confused, do they want to have that relationship the majority of the time?
Yes. The majority of the time, the parents, what I find is this interesting thing, I call it the boomerang effect, where I think that a lot of parents have now kind of been inundated with the message, you must support no matter what. So their instant reaction is, yes, I love you, I support you. But then the actual, like, everyday engagement after that announcement might be a little tense, might be a little conflicted, might be a little terse, might be a little whatever, because they're really processing it. So there might be a bit of, it's not just a coming out moment, it's kind of a coming out arc. It's a coming out idea. It just keeps kind of moving forward, and everybody needs to work kind of as a team to get to that real place of acceptance. And it can take a lot of time, but to answer your question, I really think that most parents really arc towards the legit desire to wanting to be supportive. And it goes all the way back to just wanting their
Mm-hmm.
kids to be happy and supported.
Yeah,
And if they can be part of that journey, I mean, why wouldn't they,
sure,
if there's
that makes
any way they
sense.
can?
Okay. And then I'm also wondering, given the culture of South LA, it's pretty rough. Is there a safety concern for people after they come out? Or do you find that they don't come out because of safety?
Always. Yeah. I find, yes, I both. I see a lot of people, a lot of children will wait until they're older, like 16, 17, 18, to come out, when they may have known or questioned their sexuality in their preteens, or, as children. Something that I've always found really fascinating is gay men will know that they are gay from an extremely young age. Like, they can remember wanting to hug or kiss another boy,
Hmm.
like 2, 3, 4 years old. Women, on the other hand, oftentimes have more of an arc and more of a variation. They may identify as heterosexual and then explore it or come out much later and be more on a spectrum. Kind of more like, I want to say almost pansexual, where they would fall for the each individual, as opposed to gay men. Even if a gay man comes out in his 20s or 30s even, he's known he was gay for a long time. There's a lot of repression. I've never known a gay man to wake up at 25 years old and go, oh, I
Right.
guess I'm gay now. No. They have always known. If they weren't out, they were just
Okay,
really
that makes
suppressing it.
sense.
Yeah, it's a fascinating little quirk
Yeah,
to gender and sexuality
yeah,
that
that's
I've
interesting, huh?
observed.
Okay.
Yeah. And not speaking for lesbians by any mean, or anybody on that spectrum, but
Mm-hmm.
simply my observation professionally has been that. And what I love currently is how many individuals in their teenage years was I'm doing assessments and relating to them. They identify as open or pansexual or bisexual
Okay.
when I ask the question. And it's a simple statement. It's a yeah, and instead there's like, as opposed to like when I came out or in my high school years, there's a lot more openness. And I think it comes from literally just the exposure and the blatant proliferation of individuals who are out and proud. You can't really avoid it. It's really normalized and it's seen
That's
primarily
true.
in a
Yeah,
positive
because
light.
when I was in high school, I knew of like 2 girls who were gay, but they really didn't talk about it, or like they didn't really identify as it. And I don't know, maybe it was just with me because maybe I wasn't
Yeah.
open to it, or I don't know how I was in high school, but it definitely seems much
Right.
more open and talked about now amongst the youth than it was even back like in the early 2000s.
Yeah, agreed. And I graduated, I'm old, so I graduated back in the 90s, and I remember individuals who, I think we had one person that was out. I'm a little bit of an anomaly because I grew up, I was born and raised in Montana. So I had either the like very, very out and proud, very in your face, or the closet cases, like on the down low. I rarely experienced just somebody
Yeah.
just being gay and being chill with it. And it was a fascinating experience. It really caught me off guard and really kind of made my coming out a bit more of a struggle because I didn't have really any super positive role models. Because I'm like, I didn't identify with the very out in your face making a point aspect, and I didn't identify with the shame based in the closet idea. I just wanted to be me, and if that meant loving another man, then what was the problem? So
So how did
it
you
was a
come out? Because that
fascinating
does
time.
sound fascinating, being in like rural America. And is it
Yeah,
rural over there? That's totally stereotyped. Okay.
for sure. It's rural. It's rural. There's like, I mean, there's a lot of cities in California that have the more population than the entire state, for sure. Um, my coming out was honestly pretty uneventful. As I said, since I was a younger person, a child, I never really experienced a lot of shame. My personality is very sturdy. I was also very lucky because both of my parents were educators. So they were both in the high school setting for a long period of time. So they really understood kids. So when I finally had the gumption to come out, which was, 17-ish, I think 18, I kind of came out to a few people, and then my mom and then my dad in succession. Um, I had a really positive response. It was very much when I came out to my mom, she looked right at me and said, "Oh, so you're not going to lie anymore?" So it was I was pretty darn gay my whole life. And so my whole family, we have a very kind of a smaller, tight-knit family, extended family, and when the news broke, it was a very big, oh, finally, you know. So, but I was really lucky. It could have gone very poorly growing up in Montana, but people don't understand Montana is very independent. It's very cowboy. You
Okay.
do you, just don't mess with us. So, I wasn't hurting anybody. Nobody cared. So, it was not really an issue. We grew up very independent, so we could kind of do
Yeah.
whatever we needed
Yeah,
to
I feel
do.
like as parent, or being a parent
Yeah,
now, you can tell what your kid is interested in and what they're not interested in. Um so
for
I
sure.
can, like, I'm not surprised that your parents weren't surprised, cuz yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm very me. I'm very
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Awesome. So I feel like we talked about a lot of things that social workers or clinicians can do to help. I mean, so many different people in each like area. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you feel is important we should know around like being sex positive or the LGBT community?
No, I think we really covered it. I think my biggest thing, I just would always love to just re-emphasize and reinforce that as clinicians, really, really try to focus on or get education and be comfortable around sex and sexuality. No matter what demographic you work with, it is a factor. Love, relationships, sex, all of those things, it's only going to help you. If you're only talking about your, you know, how my job is going and I feel upset about whatever and family life, you're really missing a very large portion of this person's being if you're not addressing how they're engaging
And I
intimately with
think it's
other people.
important to remember this applies to us too as people. We're not just clinicians and social workers that, you know, in this industry, we have such a
For
high rate of
sure.
burnout and like our stress, our stressful jobs, like the long hours. Now we're, you know, like the dangerous position sometimes, you know, with COVID. It's all very stressful.
Yeah.
And to take the time and to just love on ourselves and love on our partners. And
Oh my goodness, yeah. Self-care, I always say and tease people, however you define it, it's okay. I love individuals who are like, "Oh yeah, my self-care is going to the gym and I hate it."
that's
I'm
a
like, "That's
chore.
not self-care." you know? if you if you don't like working out, don't call the gym your self-care. If your self-care is staring at a blank wall or playing Candy Crush, so be it. That's awesome. Knock yourself out. So, yeah, it's so important to really focus on our own personal mental health. Like I had a team meeting or group supervision the other day, and there's like 10 of us that are all either team leads or licensed that we kind of get together and talk. And such a huge focus was on what are you doing for self-care right now? You know, we're doing Zoom sessions. Everybody's burnt out on Zoom already. You know, how do you engage a teenager on a conference call? You know, how do you, and then if you're working from home, how do you separate working from home versus your own personal space? Are you looking at your laptop
Right.
and thinking you need to do notes all the time? What do you do? It's all very important to prioritize your
It's
own
true. And
self.
I think as social workers, a lot of times like we get into this business to help other people. And we forget to help ourselves, or it's hard for us to accept that we need help as well. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's really important. I can't tell you, I worked a job for a little while where I didn't really have a support structure. I was just kind of doing my own thing. And I can imagine a lot of individuals, especially those in private practice, being able to really engage with a fellow therapist, a fellow social worker who really understands what it's like in the trenches. You know, we see 3 or 4 clients in a day, and people are like, oh, that's nothing. You don't understand that 3 or 4 clients or 4 or 5 clients in a day can burn you out if you're doing an hour's worth of focus, being attentive, empathetic, solutions focused, then writing your
Yeah.
notes and everything else.
That's
It'll get
exhausting.
you.
Our brain
It's not
uses up
easy.
like 20% of our energy. Like it's crazy how much energy our brain uses. Yeah.
Yeah, it is
So,
nuts.
where
I
can
see it
people
all the
find
time.
you and get more information? I know you mentioned a lot of cool things like workshops and the sex positive parties and I don't
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all good. For me, the best thing to do is just my first and last name. If you Google me, I pop up. I made a point of having my Facebook, Instagram, website, Psychology Today, everything is just damonholzum.com. I make sure everything matches. So I make it a low barrier. I want people to be
Awesome.
able to find me easily, for better or for
Well, thank you
worse.
so much, Damon. I really like talking to you today, and I think we covered a lot of powerful stuff.
I agree. Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm so glad that you reached out to me to do this. I love furthering this
Yeah,
conversation and putting it out there.
awesome.
Hopefully
Thank
it's
you, Damon.
beneficial to other people.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Social Workers Rise. If you loved it, write a review and give us 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. This just helps other people just like you find us and join our community. Also, I would love to connect with you on Instagram. You can find me at Social Workers Rise. I can't wait to see you next week. Bye.